Good evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Sean Yao.
The big stories tonight. Leyte Congressman Martin Romualdez vows full cooperation with the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, now probing allegations of corruption. Saying he has nothing to hide, the former House Speaker is even willing to open records of his wealth if the ICI wants it.
And Ombudsman Boying Remulla is reopening public access to statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth of government officials, virtually lifting sell-in restrictions imposed by his predecessor.
And Vice President Sara Duterte washes her hands of Congressman Kiko Barzaga and his campaign to force President Marcos to step down.
I'm very glad that I was invited to the ICI to share my personal knowledge on the budget process. And of course, any information about the insertions on the flood control. It's about facts and evidence and hindi lang political noise or speculations.
As he had promised, former House Speaker Martin Romualdez attended today's hearing of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure. ICI is the fact-finding body tasked to investigate the flood control scam. Romualdez was invited by the ICI to provide information on when alleged insertions were made in the 2025 General Appropriations Act. The commission banked on his familiarity and personal knowledge as former House Speaker. But during the hearing, Romualdez clarified he was not part of the bicameral conference committee that finalized this year's budget. He, however, said that he is willing to divulge what he knows to the ICI. Romualdez also submitted his affidavit and said he was willing to return if called again by the commission. He also offered to submit his SAL-N if required or statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth.
Unang-una, nagpapasalamat ako sa ICI. I'm very glad that I was invited to the ICI to share my personal knowledge on the budget process. And of course, any information about the insertions on the flood control. That is the basis of my invitation. It's about facts and evidence and hindi lang political noise or speculations. The ICI commissioners were able to ask me many questions and I was able to answer it.
ICI Executive Director Brian Hosaka considered Romualdez's testimony today as helpful as he named other lawmakers who were part of the budget process. Those mentioned will also be called in by the commission.
Wala siyang in-implicate, sinabi niya lang kung sino yung mga tao na involved doon sa budget process. It is helpful in the sense na we, in a way, are medyo napalinaw kung ano yung naging role niya or role ng mga kasamahan niya sa paggawa ng budget. So these people we will be inviting soon to shed light on their participation also in the budget preparation, which also pertains to the alleged anomalous flood projects.
As expected, Romualdez denied allegations that cash kickbacks and luggage were delivered to his residence in Forbes Park. This was claimed by Orly Gutesa during a Senate hearing. Gutesa was a former security aide of Romualdez's close ally, resigned Congressman Zaldico.
It's not part of my security. The witnesses that were presented are discredited already for having presented falsified documents in the testimony, and their testimonies have already been denied.
As for Zaldico, well, he did not attend today's ICI proceedings despite a subpoena. Attorney Hosaka said the commission would petition a regional trial court to cite Ko in contempt if he continues to ignore the ICI invitation. If granted, this may trigger the issuance of an arrest warrant. Ko is still abroad as we speak. Meanwhile, Vice President Sara Duterte says Zaldico's SunWest company was involved in the Department of Education's purchase of overpriced laptops. In a press conference, Duterte also insinuated selective probe or a selected selective probe rather in current corruption cases.
SunWest ang contractor ng laptop doon sa DepEd. Bakit hindi nilalabas lahat nung mga insidente o mga gawain o mga iskandalo sa korupsyon? Bakit pinipili? Kaya natin nasasabi lahat na merong controlling the narrative ay dahil pinipili nila kung ano yung gusto nila imbestigahan.
Now, with the information he has on the flood control scam, can Martin Romualdez eventually become a state witness? Palace Press Officer Claire Castro was asked about this earlier today, and her reply, it's up to the Department of Justice to evaluate.
Depende po sa kanyang magiging salaysay at kung ano po ang kanyang mailalahad. At depende na po rin yan sa Department of Justice kung siya pa ay maituturing na isang state witness at ito naman po ay irerekomenda sa korte. So lahat po yan ay depende sa lahat ng mangyayari. So hindi pa po natin masasabi kung siya pwede maging state witness o hindi.
But Romualdez becoming a state witness is not sitting well with Davao City Congressman Paulo Duterte. In a statement, Pulong called it the biggest joke of the century. He likened the would-be state witness to a crocodile testifying about other crocodiles, but quote, only after they've finished eating off the river. Pulong also cautioned the country that reputation and future are now at stake if culprits in the flood control scam remain unpunished.
Meantime, Malacanang has defended the inclusion of unprogrammed appropriations in the proposed 6.793 trillion peso national budget for 2026. The Marcos administration stressed that the fund's role as a financial buffer during natural calamities. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro explained that while critics, particularly from the opposition, often question these allocations, the Budget Department relies on unprogrammed appropriations when contingent funds, including the NDRRMC's disaster funds, are depleted. She also assured that the government will safeguard these funds and will not be immediately released for discretionary funding or discretionary spending or be treated like pork barrel.
Hindi po ba nagkakaroon po tayo ng sinasabi nating magkakaroon ng pag-deplete ng funds ng NDRRM dahil sa maraming nagiging kalamidad sa ngayon. Sa ngayon po, kapag ka po na-deplete yan at naubos na po ang contingent funds, dyan po naman kukuha sa unprogrammed appropriations mula sa sagip. Kaya po, tandaan po natin, kahit po ito ay nasa unprogrammed appropriations, iingatan po ang budget na to at hindi naman po agad ito mailalabas para katakutan nila at sasabihin magiging pork barrel lamang.
And now joining us on the big story for the first time, our first guest tonight, Presidential Communications Office Secretary Dave Gomez. Sec Dave, welcome to the big story. Good evening.
Good evening, Ces, and thank you for having me. A long time no see, Ces.
Oo
How
nga.
are you?
Okay, so the President must be watching closely what's happening with the ICI and the pronouncements of the new Ombudsman. He has been very transparent in what he's doing, and yet the quarterly surveys show that the people are unsatisfied, 69% I believe in Pulse Asia, with the government's handling of the corruption issues.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Ces. No, pero I believe we have a fresh survey that came out today from Okta Research that says 83% of the people, of the respondents to the survey, support the decision of the president to expose this flood control corruption, this alleged flood control anomalies. We must remember that it was the president himself who blew the whistle on this issue. I believe he is the only sitting president in Philippine history to expose corruption in his own administration. And he did this during his July 28, Mahiya naman kayo, SONA. And we must remember that was only 2 months and 2 weeks ago, and since then, a lot of things have happened. Marami nang nagawa ang executive at ang ating Pangulo. A week after the SONA, he created the Isumbong Mo sa Pangulo website. We've gotten more than 20,000 reports already in the website. The president listed the top 15 contractors, and the licenses were all revoked. The PCAB have been reshuffled. We have a new DPWH secretary. The BOC have raided the Discaya compound. The BIR has filed tax evasion charges. The ICI was created. The ICI filed their first case. So many things have happened in
Right.
just half 2 months and 2 weeks time. So,
Okay.
but I understand the impatience of the people. Medyo naiinip pa rin sila.
Oo. So credit is given the president. However, so many things have happened since then. And this was what was tracked by the Pulse Asia survey regarding the reaction of the people. I think I understand it was conducted about 7 days, yeah,
27 to
September
30.
27 after the march. And this relates to how these investigations are being handled, the lack of transparency. For instance, the ICI has not opened its investigations, its hearings to the public. So the president may have the credit for opening the proverbial Pandora's box, but how this will be resolved is another matter, Sec Dave.
What is important at this point to understand, says, is the wheels of justice are now turning. As I said, marami nang nangyari at marami pang mangyayari. And the second point is we have to remember the ICI is an independent commission, no? So we have to defer to the collective wisdom of the commissioners who are of unimpeachable credentials. Whether they want to open the hearings or not. There are several schools of thoughts there, no? Pag open daw yung hearing, pag naka-livestream, baka may mga ebidensya o may mga witnesses na ma-compromise, magkaroon ng witness tampering, with evidence tampering in the process, or merong mga unduly na ma-implicate na hindi naman pala kasangkot. Maraming schools of thought involved here, no? Kung i-open nila or hindi. And because of its independence, we have to defer to the collective wisdom of the commission on
Okay.
this one.
Another thing that the president may have missed is certifying as urgent the measures pending now in both houses of Congress to give more teeth to the ICI. If he really wants, you know, an honest to goodness, not just recommendatory, but rather powers to the ICI. For instance, imagine they have to refer pa to the RTC ngayon, yung si Zaldico did not appear. Sana sila na lang ang pwedeng maggawa nun. Why did he not do that nung LEDAC? That was a question that was, you know, kind of bugging many.
Right. Good point, says, no? I think at the end of the day, our people want transparency and accountability in government, no? And there are several measures that were taken up during the LEDAC that addresses this point. No, one of them is the Right to Information Bill that will empower our people to have access to government information, not just in the executive department, but in all branches of government, including local government units. No, at the time when the priority legislations were pieces of legislation were being taken up during the LEDAC, wala pa tong bill creating the ICI. At hindi pa namin nakikita.
Hindi, pending na. Na-file na ni Laila, Congresswoman Laila De Lima and Risa Ontiveros in the Senate.
Correct. Hindi pa namin natatanggap sa LEDAC ito.
I see.
At sigurado ko pag natanggap naman ng LEDAC ito ay pag-aaralan kaagad ng pangulo ito at makakaasa kayo na magiging prioridad ito, no?
Kasalanan pa pala nila, hindi nila pinadala sa LEDAC.
Hindi pa na-discuss sa LEDAC yung yung ICI bill. Yes.
Because one thing that is pertinent that Congresswoman De Lima pointed out, maganda na hindi lang siya presidential creation, that it's a legislative creation, the body, the ICI.
I personally agree, says, no, certain limitations sa executive order.
Yeah.
Talagang magkakaroon ng ngipin yung ating ICI kung isa sa batas yung kanilang mandato.
Okay. All right, we're looking forward to that.
So, just a quick follow-up to that, Secretary Dave. Good evening. This is Sean. Wala bang plano now that nalaman na nga, na medyo nahuli sa LEDAC? The president can still do something, right? He can still
course.
ask
Yes.
Congress. Is there a plan to do that?
Yes, of course. Yung sabi ko nga kanina, as soon as we receive the copy of the bill and an endorsement, we will study it right away for certification as urgent.
Okay. And actually, on a slightly different matter, ano yung priorities nyo ngayon no, in terms of messaging and communications? Because you were telling Senator Gatchalian nga that your priorities are purely in communication. We hear the press cons every day and there's been a lot of like, in all this noise, di ba, yung balingan no, back and forth between the political factions right now, ang main criticism is, ang PCO ba ay talagang their default answer is to blame everything on the previous administration. What would you have to say to that?
No. Actually, I beg to disagree, Sean. No, that was my number one priority when I came in as secretary of the PCO. Which really is to communicate and socialize what I call the 3 Ps minus 1. The programs and policies of the president minus the politics. Pagod na ang mga kababayan natin sa politika. Let's talk about the programs and policies of the president, and that's what you have seen lately. The president is going out there visiting important projects that really matter to the people, projects on food security, on agriculture, on education, on health. Yun ang priority namin i-communicate and i-socialize, and less on politics, no, and the presidential elections, malayo pa yon. So that is really our priority, again, to socialize and communicate the programs and policies of the president minus the politics.
Secretary Dave, while we're still on the topic of corruption, I'm curious, is President Bongbong Marcos at all concerned that this worsening perception of corruption in the country is now starting to affect investor confidence? What steps is the administration taking to assure them that we are serious about fighting corruption?
Yes, definitely. The president is really very concerned on the impact to the economy of all this noise happening. We really need to reassure the people, as I said, that the wheels of justice are turning. And sabi nga ng Pangulo natin, walang sasantuhin dito. Nakita naman natin na ang Pangulo galit na, pagod na siya, and he wants people na managot, walang kamag-anak, walang kaibigan, walang sasantuhin. Gusto niya lahat managot. And at the same time, if you look at the mandate of the ICI, it's not just bringing the guilty to justice and recovering the stolen wealth. The mandate of the ICI is to recommend help fix the system para matigil na tong sistema, tong kultura ng korupsyon, no? And that is part of the mandate of the ICI. And I think if we can reassure the investing community, both local and international, that the government is doing everything it can to bring those responsible to justice, and doing everything we can to institute genuine reforms to fix the system, I think the confidence will not erode, and the economy will be pretty stable.
Okay, Secretary, it is budget season, so let's talk about the 2026 national budget. Hotly contested now on programmed appropriations. We heard Yusek Claire Castro saying kailangan niya, necessary, especially during times of calamity. But then you also have minority lawmakers, congressmen saying there aren't enough safeguards when it comes to unprogrammed funds. It's prone to abuse. It could be used as pork barrel. Ano po ba talaga yung sistema, Secretary, when it comes to the president? Because right now, I believe, kasama po ang presidente sa nag-a-approve kung paano gagastusin ng program. So will there be stricter safeguards when it comes to that?
Definitely. I echo the statement of Yusek Claire earlier, no? But we have to understand that we respect the power of Congress over the purse. Congress has the power of the purse, and it is Congress who will ultimately approve the General Appropriations Act and submit it to the President for signature, no? The unprogrammed portion of the budget, tama si Yusek Claire doon we need that because part of that is the contingency fund. And then we've seen the number of disasters and calamities that our country goes through every year. At pag na-deplete na yung budget ng NDRRM, we need contingency funds from the unprogrammed budget. Now, we have to remember, kaya nga siya unprogrammed is because the executive can only tap into those funds when there are funds already available. Kung wala namang funds available, hindi rin magagamit yan, kaya nga siya unprogrammed, no? And we assure you that part of what I said earlier, fixing the process, there will be more transparency and there will be more safeguards instituted before the unprogrammed funds are tapped.
Pero Sec Dave, ang nangyari nung 2025, ang binito lang ni Presidente ay maliit na halaga. Naiwan yung malaking halaga ng unprogrammed funds na nakita na nga natin na lustay. And I recall in an interview, former Senator Frank Drilon said he blames the DBM for not fully disclosing to the President the situation. That why did he just veto a small amount and hindi sinuyod yung budget na dumaan sa kanila, yung GAA. So is the President looking into culpabilities within the DBM? Because you know, the Secretary seems to be getting off the hook here.
Yung for the 2026 budget, sabi ko nga Ses kanina, no, sinisigurado ko sa inyo na magkakaroon ng mas maraming safeguards at ngayon pang nakatutok ang ating pangulo dito sa proseso ng budget, no. If you recall during the SONA, sinabi ng pangulo na hindi niya pipirmahan daw yung GAA if it is not aligned with the National Expenditure Program of the Executive Department, no. Yung 2025 nakita naman natin na napakalaking departure from the National Expenditure Program na sinabit ng executive, kaya nga marami doon na FLRs, no, for later release, no. Ngayong nakatutok ang pangulo dito sa issue na to at lahat tayo nagbabantay, ang buong bayan nagbabantay. Yun nga, ginagarantiya ko sa inyo na there will be more transparency and more safeguards in place for this 2026 General Appropriations Act.
Ko lang, Secretary Dave, because the Senate majority, no? Kumbaga, sa House pa lang naman nakalusot yung almost 250 billion na unprogrammed appropriations. Kailangan pa muna nila i-hurdle or cross over the hurdle of the Senate. And the majority there is threatening to
Zero na.
Kasi ayaw nila ng unprogrammed appropriations. So,
okay lang ba sa inyo yon?
oo nga eh. Okay lang ba yon? Kasi yung argument nila dapat ni line item na yan. Sabi rin ni Chairman Swansing, no, sa lower house, yung unprogrammed appropriations kasi para daw sa FAPs, Foreign Assistance Projects. And then now naman naririnig natin galing sa NDRRMC. So, can you tell us, no, para lang pampalubag loob lang. Kasi galit nga yung mga tao sa unprogrammed appropriations. What's going on there?
Again, sinasabi ko ang posisyon namin diyan, we respect the power of Congress over the purse, no? At the end of the day, hindi pa natin nakikita kung anong lalabas na final complexion nitong General Appropriations Act. I guess let's cross the bridge when we get there.
Pero okay
Kausapin
lang
niyo siguro
zero.
ako ulit pagdating ng final version ng GAA dahil unang-una nire-respeto nga natin ang kapangyarihan ng Senado, ng Kongreso. Ngayon pupunta ng Senado, ayaw natin silang pangunahan, ayaw natin silang diktahan.
Yeah.
At we don't want to encroach on their power over the purse.
Pero to follow up on my question, kasi tinuturo lang lagi yung House, yung Senate. Pero within the cabinet itself, within the executive department itself, may nangyayaring hocus-pocus. Paano naman nakalusot sa DBM yon? And nakita na natin that the DBM itself, by submitting a NEP that has a lot of unprogrammed funds, may collusion na with, there are suspicions na may collusion na sa mga lawmakers. So tinitignan rin ba ang kabinete dyan, Secretary?
Oo, kung naalala nyo, pagkatapos namin isubmit yung NEP sa Kongreso at nag-resign si Secretary Bonoan, ang unang-unang ginawa ng Pangulo, inutusan niya ang bagong DPWH Secretary, si Sec Vince Dizon, at ang DBM, si Sec Amina, na reviewin yung sinabit naming NEP sa Kongreso. Ang kinalabasan ng review na yon ay number one, wala nang budget for flood control for 2026. We have enough budget ngayong 2025 to address those flood control programs. So wala nang budget, na free up yung 350 billion pesos at nagbigay lang ng suhestyon ng ating Pangulo. Itong aking menu of options. Pumili kayo kung saan nyo gustong ilagay dyan. Agrikultura, edukasyon, health. Nagbigay lang ng suggestion ang Pangulo. Pero doon pa lang makikita natin na talagang kami sa executive, nire-review maigi itong proseso na to mula sa pagsabit namin ng NEP hanggang, I can assure you, all the way pag natanggap namin yung GAA.
Alright, Secretary, before we let you go, ito po, maraming nagtatanong. The PCO recently appointed as Undersecretary, former broadcaster Mon Ilagan, at maraming nagtataka, ano po ba talaga magiging role ni Yusek Mon? Papalitan daw po niya ba si Yusek Claire Castro as spokesperson?
Galing ba yan sa fans ni Claire Castro?
That's a big no. Si Yusek Claire has a role to play and she's doing her role very well. She remains to be the spokesperson of the palace and the head of the press, our press office here at PCO. Si Yusek Mon is a very welcome addition sa PCO and he will be in charge of operations. He'll be an undersecretary for operations. Alam naman natin na pagkatapos niya maging broadcaster, naging mayor din siya ng Kainta for a long time, no? So yung pagiging chief executive niya ng isang LGU ay malaking tulong sa amin dito sa PCO, especially sa operations.
On a lighter side, how has it been? I knew you when you were wearing a different hat. So, pero wala ka ng buhok nun, just to make it clear.
It's been 3 months, Ses, but it feels like years.
3 months,
Parang matagal na,
Only been
no?
3 months. Yes.
but
yes.
feels like years.
Feels like 3 years, but I'm enjoying every minute of it. Natatawa na si
Oh, that's good.
Boy.
Enjoy ka, ha? Okay. That's good to hear. How is it like working for BBM?
Well, it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring to work for a president who's very hardworking. Nasa tamang lugar yung puso niya. Yung puso niya talaga nasa ating mga mamamayan. And somebody who's very, very decisive. An action man who's very decisive, who doesn't act on impulse or gut, who makes decision based on facts available, makes informed decision based on facts. So it's really very inspiring to work for someone like President Bongbong Marcos Jr.
Okay, we thank you so much for joining us. That was Presidential Communications Office Chief Dave Gomez.
Right, we're just gonna take a quick break.
You're watching the big story here on One News. The Office of the Ombudsman, through new Chief Boying Remulla, has formally reopened public access to the SALN, or Statements of Assets and Liabilities, and Net Worth of Government Officials. Those requesting SALN copies can fill out a form, present 2 valid IDs, pay the reproduction or certification fee, and wait for the office's review. No need for the consent or permission of the concerned official. For national officials, it's the Ombudsman headquarters that processes the request, while you can ask for the SALN of local officials from sectoral offices. For the SALN of senators, congressmen, and members of the judiciary, the documents can be petitioned from their respective offices. But note that these institutions have stricter policies regarding SALN access. This is a complete turnaround from former Ombudsman Samuel Martirez's time, when SALNs could only be released when there's a court order, notarized letter of authority, and above all, the Ombudsman's approval. And speaking of the Ombudsman, Vice President Sara Duterte believes there's a new narrative in the flood control probe, or any probe for that matter, through Remulla. The Vice President had this comment as Remulla ordered the withdrawal of some cases before the Sandigan Bayan connected to the Pharmaly scandal. That controversy involved the purchase of overpriced medical supplies at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, or during the presidency of the Vice President's father, Rodrigo Duterte.
Na wala namang ginagawa itong gobyerno na ito, kundi number 1, mamulitika, at number 2, ubusin ang budget ng Pilipinas sa korupsyon. So yan lang yun ang ginagawa nila, sir, sa totoo lang. Meron ba kayong nakikitang project? And ang end goal nila is perpetuation in power.
Now, we've been chasing this official for months since I got on the show. And surprise, we have him tonight, the Ombudsman, the new Ombudsman, Jesus Crispin Boying Remulla. Welcome to the big story. How do I call you, Ombudsman Remulla?
Good evening, Ses. Just call me Boying. It's just a position.
Ombudsman Boying. I'm
Yes.
with Sean and Pawi here. So, well, many sectors are cheering this first act of yours today. So, finally.
Well, ano yan eh, I really committed to be transparent about the job itself. And I think there were not many press briefings in the 7 years that preceded my term. And it's really my habit to give people the news that they deserve to get, because after all, we serve the people.
So your SALN will now also be open for scrutiny?
Of course. My SALN is part of it. Yes. Yes.
Now, you know, the ICI just summoned former House Speaker Martin Romualdez. And we are confused if he was just a resource person, a guest. Is he being investigated? Is he one of the legislators now being looked into by your office?
Of course, everybody who had something to do with the process that passed that 2025 budget and the other budgets will be part of the scrutiny that we will put. In fact, we're chasing leads right now. We're following the money. We're doing everything to be able to pinpoint responsibility in this big mess. And I think that it's a matter of time. We just have to be patient. We have to respect rights. We cannot rush into it and disregard the basic rights of people. But we will get into it. We will get there sooner than later.
Ombudsman Boying, you have said no fear or favor, pero nanggaling ka sa sa larangan ng politika na alam mo maraming trading of favors. And itong for instance former House Speaker Romualdez is your is a member of Upsilon as you are, your brothers, your sons, and other legislators. Kaya mo na habulin sila kung may ebidensya?
Kaya ko, Ses. Ito na yan eh. Kasama yan sa trabaho ng hiningi ko. I asked for this job. And I'm willing to go where it will take me.
But
Kasi
you
ito
know-
naman, you don't choose it eh. It will take you where you have to go.
But you know how the frat works, ha? Di ba?
Oh yeah, but the fratas, Ninoy and McCoy were both Upsilonians, and they never agreed with each other, and they 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 disagreed completely, and they were on the other sides of the political fence. It can happen. Hindi naman lahat hindi naman lahat nakukuha sa pakisama. Bansa muna. That's how what we were taught when we entered the fraternity. Bansa muna. God first and country. Yan muna.
Ombudsman Boying, you are the first politician to be the ombudsman. If you look at Wikipedia, everybody else came from the judiciary. What do you think is that special insight that you have, having come from that other side, as Cess asked, no, that you can bring to
I think
the
it's the
table?
leadership that I can provide. It's the leadership that I can provide, the direction that I can provide, and I think the perspective that I have, which the others don't have or never had, because I came from, I was a practitioner of law. I came from the legislature. I came from the executive, and I came from the elective politics. I became a governor of our province, and I know where these things, what matters, what things people complain of, and I really wanted to be in this position to correct these things. Marami kasing mahirap na gawin, kagaya sa Kongreso. Dyan, walang tawiran ng teritoryo dyan eh. Very territorial ang Kongreso. Hindi mo talaga, if you want to live through the next 3 years, let them be and let yourself be. Ganun ang mga patakaran sa Kongreso.
Okay.
Sa governor naman, you go local, strictly local. Kaya iba-iba yan. Pero the perspectives are there in providing to give me the room to fight corruption. Kasi alam ko ang kalakaran kung paano gumagalaw ang mga tao at kung ano ang hinaing ng taong bayan tungkol sa kilos ng gobyerno.
And you said in a previous interview I watched nung bagong-bago ka pa lang na ombudsman, sabi mo you have courage. Is that courage coming from your experience, extensive experience on the ground sa local, legislative, executive?
I think that for the people who know me, they've known me to be courageous ever since I was young. I think I had a reputation already. And I don't have much to prove when it comes to that.
Okay.
All right, well, Ombudsman Boying Remulla, marami nga natuwa dun sa inyong first order of business, which is to rescind that memorandum restricting access to SALNs. Pero marami nagtatanong, ano po ba yung information na makikita natin sa SALN? Because I understand there will be some info redacted. So where do we draw the
Ang
line?
redacted lang dyan, personal circumstances lang ng tao. Identities, yung minor children, hindi natin ilalabas. Yung address, kung saan sila nakatira, yung telephone number, and whatever complies with the data privacy law. Kasi we have to respect rights of people, and we don't want to expose them to peril. That's why we were asking for these undertakings that the people will not use it for a purpose other than probably investigative research.
You also have quick follow-up. You have the power to deny the release of these SALNs as well. And there's quite a lot of conditions bago nyo pa i-release. Actually, mas marami.
Ang deny lang dyan, pag may tendency, pag may bad record na yung tao na hindi dapat bigyan ng SALN kasi baka i-weaponize. Yan ang ayaw natin bigyan yan.
What about lifestyle checks, Ombudsman? Will that
Kasama yun
pursue?
sa instructions na binigay natin. Ang SALN talaga is a lifestyle check tool. Kaya yan, binibigay natin ng kusa sa taong bayan. Kasi nga, we want crowdsourcing also to be a source of information. Sino ba makakilala sa atin kung di kapitbahay natin, di ba?
Okay. Ngayon itong Farmally, ano bang storya dito? Bakit kinailangan kunin ulit sa Sandigan Bayan at rebisahin?
Ang daming mali maraming mali sa prepared case, maraming excluded parties, maraming parang na-disregard ang maraming parts sa Senate report, na-disregard yung maraming investigations. And I think that we have to take a second look at what cases to file. Kasi marami ditong hindi dapat ganon eh. You will see it later on. As we review it, we will improve the pleading to include all those who should be included as defendants in that case.
Okay. Ombudsman Boying, in the Pulse Asia survey, and makakasama natin si Ron Holmes later, but the perception of the public, of the people, in how the government is fighting corruption has worsened. It's, I think, 69% or 79. The figure escapes me now.
Almost 60.
But ano ba, ang laking responsibilidad na nasa balikat mo ngayon para ma-prove sa kanila na kaya ng gobyernong habulin ang mga mandarambong sa gobyerno.
Nangyayari yan, sis. It will happen. Today, nag-turn over sa akin ng DOJ ng dokumentong pinaghandaan namin actually, nandun pa ako, nung sinimulan yon. Tapos na-delegate ko na yung responsibility sa mga kasama ko nung sa DOJ. Today, they turned over to me 5 cases. Hindi ito yung top honchos kagad. Pero ito yung low-lying fruit. Kasi simple cases of ghost projects. Simple because it's easier to prove than anything else. Ano yan eh? Talagang malversation and falsification. That's what it's all about. And in this case, I think that we will get both restitution and retribution.
Pero gusto ng tao yung mataas talaga.
Darating tayo ron. Today, I also, ang ating ngayong sinusunod na prinsipyo rin dito, sa sleuthing, sa pag-aaral, follow the money. And today, we got more evidence that one of the contractors in the 15, together with 2 congressmen, were in cahoots, and there was a bank-to-bank transmittal of money. And that we can say that it will make the case very strong,
So,
and it's going to happen very soon also.
Smoking gun na yon.
Smoking gun na yun. Yes.
Kailan po namin
Kaya
malalaman yung detalye?
lang, it's just letting us start kasi it's only my second day in office.
Oo nga. Sige.
Last
Bigyan naman
week, I
natin.
was there Friday to get oriented. I went to work yesterday. And yesterday, we already ordered these family cases to be reviewed. And today, we got these cases from the DOJ, which we prepared for. And we released a SALN. I think that we're hitting the ground running.
Yeah.
And we will not stop, Cess. We will not stop.
But Mr. Remulla, what cases are we looking at here? Posible po ba talaga ang plunder? Because it was previously mentioned na ang madali
Plunder is
ipapatunayan,
overrated,
malversation.
Plunder is overrated. Kasi, ang problema sa plunder law, there's so much to prove just to make a person go to jail for life and make it non-bailable. Dito kasi, very clear case ito ng malversation through falsification or malversation of public funds. Pag umabot ng 8.8 million pesos, threshold amount, non-bailable na eh.
Okay.
Kaya why bother with plunder when there's so much jurisprudence and there's so many cases where people were acquitted of plunder? And that the bar has to be set to make plunder easier to prove. But just the same, there are legal tools that we can do to send people to jail for life.
That law has to be amended most likely. Ano? Parang...
Yes. Ano yan eh? Talagang it's difficult legislation. And it's very hard to really work on it. It's a relatively old law, but not much success in the past in prosecuting plunder.
So Ombudsman, sorry, nasa secretary pa rin ako. Ombudsman Boying, nabanggit nyo kanina na it is just day 2, pero meron ka ng mga smoking gun, quote-unquote. That's really fast, but around when kaya will you be disclosing details or mabubulaga na lang ba kami? We'll see it in the papers?
We will release them once we get more information, once we get other circumstantial information, and once we start building up the cases. Kasi mahirap naman na palabas ka ng palabas as hindi mo naman gagawin. Gagawin ko muna bago ko ipalabas, di ba?
Okay. And you have 1,200 more or less people at the office of the Ombudsman. I have no idea if that's too much or too little for all these tasks.
About, maybe up to 1,400. There's a lot of people. Ang laki ng opisina ng Ombudsman. I was shocked myself. It's my first time. I never practiced law in the Ombudsman's office.
You were shocked, huh?
Yeah. It's my first time there. Nagulat ako, ang laki ng edifice.
Tapos walang
mga buildings
nangyayari.
na kasama dyan.
Tapos walang nangyayari.
Hindi kasi, ang DOJ, sa dami ng trabaho namin, makikita mo naman yung building namin. Para kami nagsisikang mga ron, kawawa doon. Nagbabanggaan kami sa corridor dyan. Pagka nagkasabay kayo sa corridor, magbabanggaan kayo sa liit ng opisina namin kasi sa pangitan ng building namin. Dito talagang, parang parang talagang binigyan talaga ng magandang tahanan ng ombudsman.
Okay,
Ang kailangan lang, yung kultura, isa sa ayos natin. Gagawin natin yung, alam natin sa kanila at papadama natin sa kanila yung urgency ng trabaho. Kasi, may kanya-kanyang kultura yan. The past years have not been very, very productive for one reason or another. Pero parang parang nag-slow down talaga lahat. So now, we're telling them, pagkailangan natin, the deadline for everything we're doing here is yesterday. As we said in the DOJ, the deadline is always yesterday.
Yes, and the public is getting impatient. We thank you so much for your time. That was a very 2-day-old ombudsman, Boying Remulla. Maraming
Salamat, Cesar. Salamat sa inyo.
All right, now moving on to another story. A new Okta Research survey shows majority of Filipinos are outraged over corruption in flood control projects and strongly back President Bongbong Marcos's move to expose the scandal. The Tugon ng Masa survey finds 60% of respondents feel angry or outraged at government corruption, while 30% feel fear or anxiety, and 9% feel disappointment or sadness. Anger was particularly high among the Gen Z and millennials. Meanwhile, 83% support the president's decision to expose corruption, seeing it as a step toward transparency and accountability. The poll was conducted nationwide among 1,200 adults from September 25 to 30. Okta President Ranjit Rai told our sister show Storycon that Filipinos expect credible, zero-tolerance action, stressing that the cleansing process must go all the way to meet public expectations.
Filipinos through this survey are sending a strong signal na zero tolerance for corruption. No? While the public supports the president's decision to confront wrongdoing, it expects a lot, di ba? Swift, transparent, credible action, including the punishment of offenders, the recovery of public funds, and long-term reforms to ensure clean, efficient governance. So hindi pwedeng PR lang to. Gaya nga ng nakikita natin, hindi pwedeng performative to.
Now on to another survey. A new Pulse Asia poll shows 77% of Filipinos believe the United States can best help the Philippines in dealing with China's actions in the West Philippine Sea. Japan ranked second at 45%, followed by Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom, and South Korea. The survey was conducted from September 27 to 30.
Now, Pulse Asia is also expected to come out with its survey results on corruption and flood control projects. But before that, let's talk about their already released surveys with the firm's president, Ronald Holmes. Welcome back to The Big Story.
Thanks, John and Pauline.
So, well, we just got off the Zoom with the new ombudsman. And I'd like to ask you about yung perception ng tao na walang mangyayari, no? Can I paraphrase it to walang mangyayari? Or I guess being frustrated with the way the government is tackling corruption. That's a high 79%, if I got it right?
69.
Ay, 69. Dinagdagan ko. Okay.
May plus 10 ka. That's beyond the margin of error. Right. No, but yung disapproval, when we ask people with regard to their assessment of the performance of the administration in fighting graft and corruption, the disapproval is at 69. And only 17% are approving, the rest are undecided. So that's a net negative of 52%, which is quite significant. No? But if you look at it, it's really, it stares the government right there, no? Basically. And that's why I think the job of the ombudsman would be something that I would not envy at this point, because he would be the point person here in terms of showing how resolute, serious the administration, the government is. Because the ombudsman is really supposed to be an independent entity. And giving Ombudsman Boying, I think he really has so much on his shoulders right now.
Ron, is it the first time that corruption was next to inflation as a top concern of the people?
Not really. We've had corruption as a concern always in the top 5 among a list of concerns that we ask people to select from. The last time I recall was during the time of Noynoy Aquino, before he assumed the presidency, because Noy Noy's campaign was really anchored on fighting graft and corruption. So since the new president was really harping on corruption, it was recognized as an issue. And of course, we all know that there were certain scandals in the previous administration. That was the Arroyo administration. So it was an urgent concern there. Corruption also happened to be, I think, about top three at one point in time in the Duterte administration. But this one is not surprising because we've seen over the past month reports with regard to anomalous or even ghost projects, substandard projects on the part of the Department of Public Works and Highways.
But can we extrapolate that the people now will be more mindful, more watchful of government officials? Can we conclude that from your survey?
Yeah, basically, I think when you ask people, and this is the survey that the data we should release tomorrow, when you ask people whether corruption is pervasive, basically everyone says it is. So in this sense, people know, except that the scale
Yeah.
of resources that have been abused, misused, and pocketed in this current episode is really so huge that we can only think about it. No, as I says in one of our conversations, I don't know how many lifetimes before we can earn that amount.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe 100 lifetime.
Hindi kasi dati ang
am
mga
I-
tao parang tama. Parang they see it as part of government eh. Parang pare-pareho lang yan, hindi ba? Pag tinatanong mo anong preference nila sa boboto, parang pare-pareho lang ang tingin nila halos na politics really corrupts you. Something like that.
Yeah, it's essentially something that people think is normal, but
Right,
what has
right.
happened is that it goes beyond the normal. I remember the time of the CTE and BN scandal, then the primary witness, Jun Losada, saying that, you have to moderate your greed. But it seems that it was not moderated. The results of the investigations that have been concluded so far show the amounts under the billions of pesos, right? And you've got a contractor as 28 luxury cars.
Yeah.
We can only
Insatiable
dream
nga
of
daw.
we can even dream of only having one of those.
Yeah, they did call it as insatiable, hunger, thirst, whatever you want to call it. But Dr. Holmes, talk about this survey that Pulse Asia will be releasing tomorrow about the flood control scandal. Maybe you can give us a preview already of the results that you got.
It's not really about the flood control scandal per se. It's really part of it is academic. No? We want to see whether corruption is thought of by people as something that is normal, and the extent of corruption that they perceive. No? And as I said, at least based on what I can recall, because I still have to review the data before we release it, 97% would have said that corruption is pervasive. Tama yung sinabi ni Ses. Alam natin na ang corruption ay malawakan. Yung nga lang, merong maaaring level na katanggap-tanggap at may level na talagang kahindik-hindik na.
And what little tidbit can you share with us, Ronnie, about that survey? What jumped out at you the most? Like, what's really interesting? Any surprises?
Well, there's one part of the survey where we asked whether they believe that there's a collusion among officials in the executive department, the legislature, the private contractors, etc. It's not really surprising because this has come out in the investigations both in the Senate and even in the House. And the so-called resource persons being called by the ICI and even by the Department of Justice basically involve people coming from those two branches of government and the private contractors. So you have if I can recall correctly, about 9 out of 10 people saying that there is such a collusion. So, and I don't think it's just a question of flood control projects, no? Because what has been revealed so far is that it has also involved school buildings, health centers, farm-to-market roads. I'm pretty sure that whatever government has procured is tainted with corruption.
So this is a unique time in the country wherein the people are more concerned. Hindi yung pinagkikibit balikat lang na, parte yan, na gusto na nila talaga ng reforma. Can we say that from the survey that you hope?
Well, yeah, we can say that that's part of it, although we did not have any specific question with regard to what they want to happen, what reforms they would want to happen. But definitely there's that, as I said, they're disapproving of what has been done to attend to this age-old problem that we've had of graft and corruption. And the level is quite significant. We have not seen this level of disapproval in the past, even during the scandals that we saw in the past. And definitely the government or the administration will take a hit if there is no resolute or effective action against graft and corruption here.
But from your experience tracking public opinion, Ronnie, how quickly can the government recover from a dip like this? What kind of actions can they do to shift the perception?
Well, Pauline, it's going to be difficult to say how quickly because, as I think Ombudsman Boying would know, the legal process is something that you have to follow. And if you don't follow it, then it's going to affect the cases that will be filed. But to me, to begin with, you just charge people and not just the fingerlings, charge the big fish. Kumbaga, sabi ko sa wikang Filipino, hindi lang yung gulami kasama yung mga palyeta. Just charge them. And charging them would already be sufficient to indicate that really you're not in any way excluding anyone, regardless of the position that they hold or the positions that they held. And that's very important. Because in the past, normally what has happened was that some people were let go of. And then after a while, you see people being given much more privileges, even if they were arrested. This time around, I think, when you have a resource person being cited for contempt in the Senate or the House, they're put in either the House or the Senate, or for those who are unlucky, they'll put in the city jail. So if you charge a high government official and you put that person in a city jail, I think that testifies the objectivity on the part of government. Of course, I would not expect that to happen, but charging alone a big fish would be sufficient, I think, to evidence the sincerity of government.
Now, when will you release the approval ratings of our top government officials? Bukas na rin.
Bago
Masyado
matapos
kaming
ang
napapasuspense.
bago matapos ang linggo, Chess, mag-striptease muna.
Anong ibig sabihin nun?
Sneak peek muna.
Okay,
No, but,
kasi we're
I-
curious because,
Yeah, but I
this
think-
is benefiting the difficulty the government is having in dealing with these issues is being pounced on by the opposing camp. And they may be,
Yep.
benefiting from it. So it's creating a deeper polarization. I don't know. You tell us.
I would think that the polarization had been there to begin with. It has been there. We've seen it from, I think, even as early as December 2023. And then, of course, it became wider. I mean, not exactly to the extent that half of the population, but we see basically a geographic polarization where certain areas of the country tend to favor a particular prominent family, while other areas would be more or less diverse insofar as who they favor or whether they're indifferent towards these warring prominent families. But then again, it's not something that cannot in any way be resolved. No? It's not that as if you're giving it away to the opponent. The opponent will definitely use every opportunity and seize this opportunity to pounce on their primary rival. But to me, the most important thing is that they are not clean to begin with. They also have to be held accountable for certain things that they have done and that they refuse to be held accountable for.
This is your other persona talking. Thank you for joining us on the Big Story Pulse Asia President Ronald Holmes.
Right, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for tonight. Thank you so much for watching The Big Story.
We are back here tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. We'll be seeing you then.
Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a good night.
Coming up next, we still have play-by-play with Andre Felix and Cheska Liton-Kala for all the latest in the world of sports.
Yes,
Okay,
thank
guys,
you.
take
Welcome
it
back,
away.
Sean.
We are
So, meanwhile, thank you once again to the big story. On our show, we've got the latest from the PVL Reinforced Conference with a triple header on tap today, plus awardees in the PBA as TNT's Chot Reyes wins Coach of the Year again.
And we've got the Philippine men's national football team facing Timor-Leste right here at home in their second matchup in the 2027 AFC